Dubai's running out of time, gentlemen. Let's move.
You didn't actually think we'd just let you walk in here, did you?
We've been set up.
Welcome to Hell, Walker.
One of the war games that has really got into the psychology of battle and the psychology of a soldier's mind is Spec Ops: The Line. We've had hands-on with it previews before. Really enjoyed it. Really in depth and everything like that. What are you guys showing here today?
What we're showing here today, here at our Spec Ops bus here at E3, is that we are showing, we have two different demos going. One is the consumer demo, which is out now that you can download on 360 and PlayStation 3. The other is a mission from later in the game, right at the beginning of the third act. And what's happening is that you, as Captain Walker and your squad, have, after stealing a 33rd chopper to get your way to Conrad, the chopper has been crashed by a sandstorm, and Walker wakes up alone, concussed, he's injured, the weight of the mission is weighing down on him, the tower is standing in front of him with a setting sun behind it, and Conrad is speaking to him over his radio, and all these factors come together to create a hallucination where Walker is suddenly flooded with all of these visualizations from everything that's happened so far, having to face what he's doing, and as he finds himself alone in this ship graveyard, not knowing whether his squad is still alive or if they're dead somewhere.
The game's filled with very heavy-hitting imagery, and certain actions that you will do in the game really cross the line. I don't want to spoil it, obviously, for people that haven't played it either, and I'm sure. But right now, how do you go about? I mean, it must be a symbiosis of obviously script and voice acting. How do you guys merge the two together to create this?
Well, one of the great things about the acting and the actors on Spec Ops is that rather than record them separately, we actually kept our squad simultaneously in the room together. So they were enacting the script at the same time, playing off of each other, which allowed for a much more emotional, organic kind of a delivery. When they're able to play off each other's emotions, get angry together, get tired together, you really begin to feel that within the game. But to find these moments, a lot of times we just had to dig down and look for what we find uncomfortable. We weren't trying to find the things that we thought were cool or the things that might affect you, but generally when you're trying to make a piece of art that is affecting people, you have to dig down and find something that's going to affect you first and then go out from there. The hardest line though was trying to make sure that you're not making something that's just exploitive. So we went through the checklist. Anytime we had a scene or a moment that felt like it was crossing a line, that it was just there to shock, we threw it out. Everything in the story had to be there for a reason, because what we're wanting to do with Spec Ops is to take you somewhere emotionally. You haven't been in a military shooter. We want you to feel as if this is a personal story. What happens to good men when you put them into an increasingly bad situation? And as soon as if at any point in time it just fell into shock value, all of that would have fallen apart, and it just would have been like everything else.
Well, one of the moments we had in a preview a couple of months back is a moment I was going to sort of discuss. Most games sort of try and translate that through cutscenes, but in Spec Ops it's through player action, exact immediate effect. And the scene where we played, where you're in a market and friendlies basically appear on the other side of the market, and you have that clash where you're screaming for them, ceasefire, friendly, and that moment of having to pull the trigger. And in any other game, you'll go through a mountain of bodies and not blink an eye. One bullet, one soldier, horrified. How do you guys get that so it's translating the player's action rather than a cutscene, so it's an interactive moment of disgust and self-loathing almost?
Well, what we wanted to do in Spec Ops with these moral choices is create these scenes where the player would, sometimes they'd know they were in a choice, sometimes they wouldn't. For instance, the one you're talking about, this is a soldier you've been trying to save. He was kidnapped, you're trying to get to him to save him, but when you get there, he doesn't know who you are. You're from an outside unit that's just entered Dubai. To him, you're a combatant. He thinks you're an enemy, and he pulls a gun on you. We wanted the player to have these moments where they ask themselves, what do I do? Do I try to talk him down? What if I pull the trigger? Certainly they won't let me kill this guy. He's obviously important. But that's a video game mentality that we've been trained to believe. We wanted our moral choices to be realistic. If the fact of the matter is, you pick up a gun, you point it at someone and pull a trigger, in the real world, that's going to have a reaction, and it's not going to be one that you're going to like. That is a very important moment, because the way we see it in a video game, especially with shooters, you're pulling a trigger on a controller, and and that causes a character in the game to pull a trigger, and on the other end of that gun, someone's going to die. And we've allowed ourselves to disconnect mentally and emotionally from that action, and we wanted players to be thinking about that now when they're playing this game, thinking about, why do I choose to play a shooter? Why am I choosing to play this game? So our choices had to be very strongly connected to the action of using a gun and a realistic consequence of using that gun.
We're seeing the beginning of the game here. You're showing off little bits. You can't really talk in any detail, and I wouldn't ask you to talk about any detail about the ending of the game, but you obviously you must be thinking along the lines, this has to really, this is going to stick and this is going to grind people's brains down.
It is. God, now you've stuck me. How do I word this properly?
This is the skill set coming in.
People have been asking me through a lot of interviews, what is the one thing you want people to know about Spec Ops? And my answer has always been, truthfully, that it's not the game that you think it is. Spec Ops this is going very deeply into the psyche of not only just the character that you're playing, Captain Walker, but it's also asking you to look at your actions and your feelings about the game, and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why did I act this way in this game? Whether it's good or bad. We want you to hold a mirror up to yourself and say, why am I playing this game the way that I'm playing it? When you add that in with the moral choices and the horrific things that can happen in this game, we're hoping that the game is going to create a branching path almost within the player, that the way they would be playing at the beginning is not going to be the way they would be playing at the end. Those choices are going to affect how the ending of the game resolves itself. However, it's not going to resolve itself the way that you're expecting. It's not calculating up good and bad points. It's not saying, well, you get the mediocre ending because you did this and this. It's building to a different kind of climax that, outside of that, I really can't tell you any more about.
I think that's vague but enticing enough to make us know that you've gone good. Well, really hope to see what the end result of this is. Like I was saying at the start, it's a very, very engrossing, very involving interview, so really look forward to playing it. Thanks so much this time.
Check it out.